Hey, what's up, guys? It is Ben 10,000 YGO, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero. Today's video is going to be a very interesting video. I came up with this idea thinking about like how there's all these archetypes and all these really interesting mechanics and things like that, and I was like, wait a minute. How does one know that they might have a deck that might be, even if it's not good right now, might be good in the future, or might be good to be a part of what I call a Chimera deck? So, and Chimera decks, just for a quick summary, is any deck that is like 3 or more archetypes in one deck. So that's just what I call it. That I don't think that's an actual thing that the community has coined. That's just something that I call. But before we get into this list of things to look for if you're wanting to build a deck that might be good in the future or could be used as a portion of a Chimera deck, I want to remind you guys that if you want to support the channel, I have a Teespring store, and I would be greatly appreciative, if you would buy some merch and let everybody know that you're one of my tricksters. And you can get stickers, masks, t-shirts, etc. And if you're looking for a Facebook group that isn't the cringiest thing in the world, if you're looking for one that's like strictly Yu-Gi-Oh!, I suggest you come to my personal Facebook group, Legion Duelist. Over there we just talk Yu-Gi-Oh! You can post your deck profiles if you want. You can post memes. You can, if you're a small creator like myself, you're more than welcome to share your channel and talk about, if you talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! And yeah. Also, there's several other, prominent Yu-Gi tubers that are actually in that group. MM Master Swag King's in there. Invoked 101 is in my group, and Yugi Zombie Queen, a fellow small creator, is in that group, and hopefully more people will be there in the future. So go check it out. All right, so let's get into this list of like 10 things, or excuse me, 10 signs that your deck has potential. So the first thing that you want to be looking for is Stratos type monsters. This is these type of monsters are just, oh, normal summon, get another card. And let's face it, if you're building a Chimera deck, you're probably gonna want a card like this. I mean, Trap Tricks was a part of the hat deck all those years ago, and the next hat deck would probably benefit from having, a monster like that. Even the current one, like I don't think I mentioned it in this recording, but the current today equivalent to hat would be the Dogmatica invoked Shadal deck, which Dogmatica have one of those monsters. So if you're going to build the next version of that, it's good to look at other archetypes that also have these kinds of cards available to them. Oh, also, this is what I call the consistency block. So the first 3 are going to be cards that are their sole purpose is consistency. And on the list of all these 10 kinds of cards I'm going to be talking about, you probably want like 4 or 5. You probably want at least to get at least half of these on the list into the deck that you're trying to build that's going to be unique and cater to you, or potentially a more powerful rogue or meta deck in the future. So these are just things to keep in mind. If you want your deck to function, it's going to need at least half of this list. The next part that we're going to need is you're going to want for draw power. Now, draw power doesn't have to always be spells. It can also be monsters. That's why you see Danger Jackalope in here, because the entire Danger archetype is basically draw power. And then I gave you a few examples like Dark World Dealing, Sylvan Charity, and Solar Recharge. And then, of course, we got Cleavefort Monolith, which is also a draw monster / spell because it's a pendulum. But yeah, you guys get the point. Having in-archetype draw support is just something that is, it doesn't happen for every deck. It's just another option to think about. And of course, with that being said, we also have to think about cards like Rhoda. Having cards like Reinforcements of the Army, and I'm pretty sure there's more than just the cards I'm showing you, but the idea here is just to get the ball rolling in your head to look for these kinds of cards, because there's tons of these cards. And some of them have costs, that's true. An example of this would be like Pendulum Call, ditching a card. But in today's game in Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's a lot of ways to mitigate cost. So, just something to think about. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be thinking about is you're probably going to want to think about is popular typing. So that's what you're looking at here. These are the 5 monsters that are popular in popular typing. You have a warrior, a dragon, a zombie, a machine as spellcaster. when building your deck in the future, it's also good to think about popular typing, because popular typing usually means it's high in support, which these 5 types in the game have the most support. So when building a Chimera deck in the future, it might be beneficial to think about that kind of thing. Alright, so next thing you might want to think about is disruption. You want to think about disruption. Having in-archetype disruption, like not just generic disruption, like cards like Imperm and Ash Blossom, but having in-archetype disruption is something that is just, it's instrumental. This is what separates a what I think is a good deck versus a mediocre deck, is when you have, like, because the best decks in the game, in my opinion, have their own disruption. Or they're disruption resistant to, to kind of to go alongside that. But as examples, you're looking at 4 cards right here. One of them's a hand trap, and obviously Subterra isn't the only deck that has hand traps, etc. But you guys get the point. So having your own in-archetype disruption, it doesn't matter what kind it is, whether it flips a monster face down, just negates a card effect, destroys a card, steals a monster, anything that's going to disrupt the opponent, or even just temporarily, like say, oh, you can't activate spells this turn, as an example, is going to be a card that's going to be instrumental to building your unique deck. Alright, the next thing is that you're going to want to think about cards with kind of weird interactions. Or cards that, like, they're uncommon interactions. Now, the reason why you've got these 4 cards here is Lair of Darkness lets you tribute your opponent's stuff. Sorry about that, guys. And then you have Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which is very rare. That obviously there are monsters that can attack multiple times in the game, but rarely does a deck have a monster like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno that can attack every monster they have. It's just not common. There's probably only like 2 or 3 that I can think of outside of dinosaurs that have a monster like this, so it's not very common. And then you got Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. It has an interesting interaction with other machines. So Cyber Dragons having that ability to just slurp up a whole machine deck, because and let's face it, like I said, machines are one of the popular types. So that those decks, machine decks, are going to be popular again in the future. So, having Cyber Dragon maybe being a portion of your Chimera deck, which ironically its Chimera Tech is in it, might be an option in the future. And then we have the Satellar Knight Trevere here. This guy can bounce back an entire field, so it's non-targeting, and it removes a whole field. So that's kind of just an interesting and unique interaction. I mean, you're not likely to get an effect like that off, realistically. Next thing we got to think about is cards that are resistant to removal. There's a handful of these guys. I got the seal on here because it's an example of a spell card that's not so easily taken out. But a lot of these monsters are either resistant to being destroyed or being affected, or maybe can't be killed in battle. So the idea here is that this kind of also can go hand in hand with disruption. One can also kind of view cards like this as disruption to a point, but I personally just think having monsters that are hard to get rid of is just another good example of something for you to think about when trying to build your own unique deck. Or when you're thinking about getting a deck that you think, well, this might be useful in the future. Okay, this one is within archetype extenders. So you have, as you guys can see here, you have dangers, which the dangers are all draw power and extenders. The Tenyi are also all extender monsters. And then, of course, you have some that are like Empowered Warrior and Borrow the Spear, that are either they'll summon another monster, or they have the ability to summon themselves if you have an appropriate monster on the field. But yeah, that's the point of this, is just to say, oh yeah, here's your extenders. And the next one you guys gonna have is Flashability. You want cards that are easily splashable, because look, part of your deck is going to be the 1 or 2 types that are like, okay, these 2 cards interact this way, and then you'll have 1/3 supplemental type, and this will be, okay, you're going to use this card to climb into X card, whatever. But splashability is also important. You don't want cards that are so exclusive that, you can't splash them in anything. Like, you wouldn't want to put a Machina Fortress and a Dark Magician, I don't know, Hero Chimera deck. I don't know if that would work, but you get the point. And the next thing is you probably want cards that are, you know, ban list resistant as the last thing that you want to think about. You will definitely want these cards to be when you're building a Chimera deck, or building a deck for the future that you're like, well, this isn't really particularly broken right now, but it'll be way broken later. I just want to keep iterating that for the people who skip around. You want to think about cards that are kind of, I want to say, like I said, ban list resistant. So they're not ban list proof, because nothing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is ban list proof. But picking an archetype or a group of archetypes that you know is going to be resistant to the ban list, because, you know, Konami's not going to think, oh yeah, I need to ban that right now. Might just, just another tip that you're going to want. Alright guys, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was my, my weird video of 10 signs your deck has potential type of thing. I don't know. It's just, these are things to think about when building unique decks, as well as Chimera decks, as well as building a deck that's going to be useful in the future. And I'm hoping that this will encourage people to play in a unique fashion. So anyway guys, if you like this top 10, drop me a like and a comment. It'd be greatly appreciative. If there's something you guys want to specifically see from me, don't be afraid to comment that. I know I haven't made a deck profile recently. Like I said, it's just because I've been kind of disenchanted with the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Is right now. And yeah. Anyway, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Appreciate your understanding, and I'll see you soon. Peace.